When I mention iconic musicians that completely influence the way that we listen to music and the way that the industry works nowadays, there's probably the same sort of names that appear in your head as they do in mine. The Beatles, Prince, Michael Jackson, Amy Winehouse, the Velvet Underground, Biggie Smalls and Tupac, NWA. I feel like one of the most iconic that doesn't get enough attention is the one and only David Byrne and the Talking Heads. Now, David Byrne is a Scottish-American musician who has been around for a mighty long time, and you'll know him for the iconic music that he made with Talking Heads, and of course some of his really cool solo stuff that came after the band broke up. Of course, any Talking Heads fan, and well, any real film fan, is aware of their masterpiece, which goes by the name of Stop Making Sense, which they did with Jonathan Demme. But today, I want to talk about something a little bit less known than Stop Making Sense. A film that I truly think is just as good and doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as that film does. I guess the question I really have to ask is, have you seen True Stories?
Hi, my name's David Byrne, and I made a movie about a bunch of people in Virgil, Texas.
David, relax. Relax. Remember to look up into the camera.
Now, I guess the first thing to say about this is, it's the only film that David Byrne wrote and directed. Obviously, he played a big part in stuff like Stop Making Sense and American Utopia, but True Stories was really the only film that he had full creative control over. I mean, that would never happen nowadays. The fact that he was able to make something just so abruptly strange and unique to what he is known for as an artist, and it's not like this was a small film either, this was completely released by Warner Brothers. This was a film from a big budget studio that I imagine did okay with being on a small budget, but David Byrne just kind of made it and then went back to doing music. He never really focused on writing or directing anything ever again, and I do think that it is kind of poetic about the fact that he made a film that is so undeniably great and then just stepped back from the camera and said, I've done my film, I enjoyed making it, I did a good job with it, and I don't have to make anything ever again. What's True Stories even about? Well, True Stories, or as it's presented on screen, True Stories, a film about a bunch of people in Virgil, Texas, is a film about a bunch of people in Virgil, Texas. We follow an unnamed narrator played by Byrne himself as he goes into this town and basically describes that they're celebrating their 150th anniversary of Texas, the state. As we learn this information, we go all around the town, meeting a bunch of weird and wacky characters that live here and just learning a little bit about them. I guess you could say the lead in this film is a character who goes by the name of Louis Fine, who is played by the one and only John Goodman, a country western singer who also works as a cleaning room technician, who is unfortunately very unlucky in trying to find a wife, which more or less is his whole character arc within the film. But then again, there is also a bunch of other strange characters, like Earl Culver, the civic leader, who actually just, for some reason, never speaks to his wife directly. He always asks his children to speak for him.
Linda, would you ask your mother to pass the mustard to our guest, please?
There's also Miss Rollings, a woman that just never leaves her bed once in the film. There's Mr. Tucker, who is Miss Rollings' personal assistant, who partakes in voodoo. A preacher who's a massive conspiracy theorist. There isn't really any real narrative structure to the film. We build up to the events of the big celebration, and then once that's over, David Byrne just drives off into the sunset, and the film ends. It actually ends exactly where it starts. So there isn't anything to really spoil or dive deep into, although there is absolutely plenty of stuff you can analyze in this. But at the same time, it's probably best to go in with a completely blind mind. I'm basically just here to tell you why this film is so important to me and why you should check it out. First of all, the writing is so bizarre. As I've just named all of those strange characters that you heard, if you're familiar with David Byrne, you can tell the script just completely embeds what he is or what type of person he is and how his writing style kind of bleeds onto the screen, and it fits perfectly. It comes out as something exactly what you'd expect, and if you're familiar with Byrne as an artist and as a person, you'd probably watch this knowing that and go, yeah, that's a David Byrne film. Not only this, but the fact that the film doesn't let itself get stuck within a narrative structure, it means we can constantly jump about and meet all these weird characters and catch up on them as they go through their day-to-days. We can learn more and more about Virgil, Texas, and all of the weird places that are in it. Just a little town that's so secluded from the rest of the world and honestly feels like its own little planet in the way that it just is completely disconnected from anything around it. Another fantastic reason to watch this, which should be obvious with anything that David Byrne puts his hands on, is the music. The music's great. Talking Heads went out of their way to release an album that was attached to this project, which is basically just all the music that appears in the film, and yeah, it's great. There's obviously the song Wild Wild World, which was one of Talking Heads' big hits. There's also a wide array of smaller hits that you might not have heard of, unless you've seen the film. Honestly, I'd say it might just be worth it for that alone. If you're a Talking Heads fan, that's never ever heard of this. As I mentioned before, there's plenty to analyze here, despite the lack of actual narrative, but I think that's an important thing about this as well, is you pick up so much upon rewatches through what David Byrne's narrator gives us as an audience member, and we learn a lot about David Byrne as a person. I think at the root of this, he's just a person that really loves small little cities and going to a place that you're not familiar with and just kind of like adapting to all of it. Slowly, as it becomes more and more familiar with you and more of a home to you, he just picks up and leaves and the film ends because this place isn't new to him anymore. It feels too familiar. That's kind of the whole premise of this, is just going out of your way to find somewhere so bizarre and trying to understand it. And then when you walk away with somewhat of an understanding, you're free to just leave because you've kind of picked up on what you wanted to. I should also mention that it is very funny. It's not just like strange for the sake of being strange. There's substance to it, but it does have a lot of laugh out loud moments with just how weird the city is. I think my favorite bit has to be with Spalding Gray's character, and he basically just explains how capitalism works at this table using all of this wide array of food and veg that are on the table. It's so fucking bizarre.
Excuse me, Mr. Culver. I forgot what these peppers represent.
Aha! It all spins back to the middle. Here we are right here, in Virgil.
Our way of doing business has been based on the past.
But it works well, and if you're familiar with David Byrne, it's going to work even more for you. The film also looks great. It's shot incredibly well. It's not an amateur sort of thing where it looks kind of funky at times. It just is a very stunning film to look at, and a very brilliant character study for a wide array of weird characters that you would never ever find yourself interested in. Honestly, it feels borderline reminiscent of Nashville, another film that I adore. So if you've seen that and you've never seen True Stories, I highly recommend you go out your way to watch True Stories because it's something like you'll never have seen before and you'll walk away with a better understanding of David Byrne. I am kind of sad that he never went on to make anything else, but honestly, if you're gonna go in and make one film and make it so iconic and great, but also a cult classic that is still on the verges of being very niche, then who am I to complain? Thank you for watching this video of me more or less recommending that you check out True Stories. It's so strange, and I don't think I've ever really seen anyone flat out just like speak about it and recommend it on this platform. So go out your way, see it. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought, if you liked it or hated it. And even if you're just going to see it for the first time, come back and, you know, I'd love to hear people's opinions on this because no one really seems to talk about True Stories, and I don't think that's right. I think it should be a film that a lot of people talk about all the time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I want someone to share my life. Marriage is a natural thing, and I'm a natural man.